Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for watching my show, William Wallace for America. I always start out saying, hey, everybody. It's kind of cliche ish, but, I think after you watch, if you don't watch this show live, you're watching it on YouTube and Rumble. Also, it's on all podcast apps. This is my Freedom Forum where we talk about where we're losing freedom in America. I bring on guests from all over the country and we talk about what they think we can do to save and protect freedom and what they're doing in their organization. With me is a friend of mine here locally, Christopher Holton. Thank you so much, Christopher, for coming on the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me, William. It's an honor and a privilege to be on the air with you.
Well, I appreciate that. I've always known you to be somebody that's really working on not just freedom, but you work for the Centers for Security Policy, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct. This will be my 19th year.
So you're always finding out, I guess you work on security, but do you find where you're in your organization where we're losing freedom in America?
Well, since you asked me about this topic, I've given it a lot of thought. I made some notes, and uh, we're absolutely in peril on a few fronts with some specific problems that we're experiencing that are internally here eroding our freedoms and liberties. There's no question about it.
Where do you think, in your opinion, that we're losing freedom and liberty in America?
Well, the first place is the weaponization of the Department of Justice. You've got a two-tier jurisprudence system, a two-tier justice system, unfortunately, in America today. You've got a very cynical, partisan attorney general in Merrick Garland, who I think is corrupt. And then it's been revealed to us now for several years that the leadership of the Federal Bureau of Investigation is ethically bankrupt. And they've done perhaps irreparable harm to that once august organization. And it may be beyond repair because of corrupt and ethically bankrupt leadership to the FBI. So to me, that's the biggest threat to our freedom. But there's a few others.
So before you go to a few others, I want to ask you something. What do you? And I mean, I kind of know the answer, but for somebody who might be listening that thinks, well, how is that losing our freedom just because that organization is corrupt? Can you tie in how you think that corruption is eroding our freedom?
Yeah, sure. The FBI has not done a good job of investigating certain types of crimes, including terrorism. And at the same time, they have persecuted certain individuals by investigating them, frankly, unethically. We have FBI whistleblowers that have. There's a famous one down in Florida, who, God bless him, he was working on child pornography cases, and he was taken off those child pornography cases to work on white supremacy. And what he found was that the FBI had more agents investigating the so-called huge threat from white supremacy than there were white supremacists in America. So it was all political. So this is a political show, in a way, that has been put on by a partisan FBI leadership team doing the bidding of now the Biden administration. But when Trump was in office, they were doing the same thing in defiance of the administration that was in office.
So the erosion of freedoms comes because they're going after I guess a red herring, if you will, but they're not going after the real crime. So the real criminals are getting freedom, but the good guys, or not the good guys. I'm not that's the anybody else are good guys, but the other guys are not getting freedom. Is it? Am I getting that right? How's that working?
Well, yeah, because if you don't, you can't have liberty without responsibility. It doesn't work. And what we have now is an FBI that is irresponsible. And by persecuting people who have not committed crimes.
And you said
They,
this, and you did made the perfect explanation when I was leading into. I stammered for a second on how to word that. Not say that one group is doing bad and the other group is not doing bad, but you focused it properly. When you said that if there's not equal justice, the bad people on either side get away, and the good people suffer because these are going after them. Is that correct?
yes, exactly. You put it very well, William.
I appreciate that. So, what is the Center for Security Policy? Because I want to talk about what you're doing with the center to be able to help fight for freedom. I know you're fighting for security, but at the same time, the byproduct is that we get more freedom out of that.
Well, look, it's not me personally. I work at state level for the Center for Security Policy, do some law enforcement training on the state level and the local level around the country. But we have really talented people at the center, and I'm going to name one of them, J. Michael Waller, who is deeply involved in the congressional effort to reform the FBI if possible and reform the Justice Department. And he's been doing yeoman's work in that direction. He, in fact, you might want to have him on your show.
He's on the North Shore, isn't he?
No, J. Michael Waller is a different Waller. J. Michael Waller is not from this area at all.
Okay.
He's my age, so he's an older guy. He's gonna love that I said that. But he has decades of experience in government. He was a member of the Reagan administration.
Oh, nice. Yeah, this organization was started by the Reagan administration, wasn't it? Center for
Well,
Security Policy.
it was started by my boss, Frank Gaffney, who was Assistant Secretary of Defense under President Reagan.
Okay.
And the whole mission of the center was to promote peace through American strength, which was one of Reagan's major policies and fundamental principles that he believed in, was peace through American strength, which we still believe in today.
So, what does the center do to promote freedom specifically?
Well, we believe that a strong America is a key to freedom and liberty around the world. So, outside of our borders, a strong America is the beacon of freedom. Reagan called it the shining city on a hill.
Right.
So that has traditionally been our role. More recently, we've seen the erosion of freedom here in the United States, and this is where I'll get into a couple of other things. The other fronts on which we've seen an erosion of freedom is this ESG and DEI. ESG is environmental, social, and governance investing, and DEI stands for diversity, equity, and inclusion. ESG is being spearheaded by a guy named Larry Fink with BlackRock, and it is a method that he has said that he wants to change the behavior of corporations. The problem is that it is not being applied in a way that actually does good. It does harm. And in fact, Fink has many disturbing and active ties with the Chinese regime. And he pushes companies in the United States to abide by certain ESG standards, and then looks the other way as the Chinese completely bowl over any sense of responsibility in any human rights regime, in any type of environmental regime. I mean, the climate change people blame the United States for everything, but China pollutes more than the rest of the world combined.
And this is one of the things that the Center for Security Policy is working on to be able to help expose this type of stuff, right?
Right. And we've worked on legislation on the state level around the country to have state pension systems refuse to invest in companies that use those policies. And that's starting to gain momentum. And you're starting to see a real pushback against ESG. The other thing is DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now, I want to focus on the equity, because it used to be that the civil rights movement wanted equal opportunity. Equity means equal outcomes. Nobody can predetermine an outcome,
That's
and
right.
DEI is geared towards trying to predetermine an outcome. That's socialism.
That's
That's
right.
centralized socialism, and that is a threat to our liberty. And now you have companies. Almost every corporation in this country now, including a lot uh, on the local level around the country, have DEI officers. That's like having a political commissar on staff.
That's right.
Uh,
And y'all are exposing this.
right. And now General Charles Q. Brown is Chief of Staff of the Air Force, and he's been nominated to be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and he probably will be made the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He is a big believer in DEI, and in fact, in the Air Force, he's basically established racial quotas, which, and you're starting to see in the courts a pushback against DEI because it's essentially reverse discrimination. That's a threat to our liberty and freedoms. And to have that happen in the military, which the military above everything should be a meritocracy. The cream should rise to the top. The best and the brightest should be the ones that lead our troops into battle. Shouldn't be about racial quotas. And that's extremely damaging to our liberties and our freedom. And the problem is that in the military, you have a captive audience where nobody can really fight back against that. And it's extremely disturbing, and it needs to be stopped.
And racial quotas only also go to gender quotas. You know, if it's okay to have racial quotas, then it's okay to have gender quotas, then it's okay to have other quotas. Then you're not raising the ships by raising the tide. You know, that's what equity is all about. Equity is out the outcomes. You're not helping everybody be able to perform better. You're making everybody have to perform the same, which doesn't give you a people that are overachievers or people that are willing to do more, people that want to do better, where the cream really rises to the top, where everybody not only benefits, but our country benefits, and our freedoms benefit.
And that's very well said. And I really, I didn't put it correctly. He didn't just apply racial quotas. He applied quotas across very different classes, including gender and stuff like that. Basically, he didn't want more than 67% of the pilots in the Air Force to be white males. He wanted to reduce that number. And that was his goal, was to reduce the number of white male pilots. It shouldn't matter what your sex is or what your skin color is. If you're a good pilot, you should be in the Air Force. If you're a bad pilot, you should not be in the Air Force.
Right, exactly.
That's the way that works.
Exactly. And that only costs our country not only freedom, but more money when bad pilots are wrecking airplanes, regardless of their race, their gender, or their color. You know, so I get it. We got about another minute left before our next guest there, Christopher. Anything you want to get out there before we move on?
Well, I would just say also open borders are a threat to our liberty and freedom, because if you don't have a border, you don't have sovereignty, you don't really have a country. And we have a burden being placed on our citizens by bringing in illegal aliens and essentially erasing our sovereignty with an open border. So that's also a threat to our liberties.
How can more people find out about the Center for Security Policy and get involved or help in any way they can?
Our website is centerforsecuritypolicy.org. That's centerforsecuritypolicy.org.
And where do they find? I know you write a lot and you do a lot of talks and stuff like that. Where can they find out more about what you're writing about?
It's on the center's website, centerforsecuritypolicy.org.
And I think if they go there, they're going to see a wide variety of other people writing, like you said.
A lot of people a lot smarter than me, fortunately.
Well, look, I don't know if anybody's really smarter than you, but I definitely know that there's not anybody that's more diligent than you. Ever since I've known you, you have been very diligent and very persistent on getting the information out there. And Christopher, not only do I want to thank you very much for being on today, I want to make a commitment to bring you on a regular basis so we can talk about this some more.
I'd love to. Thank you very much for having me.
Christopher, have a great day. We're on to our next guest.
Thank you, sir.
Kevin McGary, how are you doing today, my friend?
Brother William, it's good to see you again, man. How you doing?
It's always not only good to see you, have you on my show, but I know there's be an event coming up that I'm probably going to see you at again soon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Be there and with bells on, baby. I'll be speaking, and by God's grace, I'm all over the country. I'm all over everywhere, and it's been good.
Well, I've been lucky enough to have you on my show to just do an interview with you, but I'm even more fortunate now to have you on my Finding Freedom Forum, which is where we find ourselves today, where we talk about where freedoms are being lost in America.
Yes.
And I used to always think that it was just our First Amendment or Second Amendment. The more people I talk to about this, the more you get all these unique ideas and thoughts on where we're losing freedom, because that's where we need more Americans to go put their thumb in the hole and plug it up. Where do you think we're losing freedom in America?
I think your last host, your last guest, Christopher, hit the nail on the head. I mean, number one, we're losing all of our freedoms via an open border. I mean, our sovereignties are being lost. Our laws are being broken. No one is doing anything about it. No one, in quotes. Obviously, we have a guy in the White House that wants to have open borders, wants to welcome anybody and everybody from all over the world. These are a lot of them this is what they're finding. They're terrorists, they're rapists, they're the worst of the worst, and they've been set free from these prisons in South America. They're mentally ill, and I'm not talking about all of them, a lot of them. So I'm not making a general declaration. I'm saying many of them have these types of backgrounds. They're repeated sex offenders, child sex offenders, they're child sex slave perpetrators. So this is an erosion of our sovereignty and our freedom, because we have cities now across the United States that are setting up these centers for these illegal aliens to come in, and they're giving them breakfast, lunch, and dinner, hot meals. They're giving them 4- and 5-star hotel stays. This is what's happened in New York. They're in 4- and 5-star hotels, and they've decimated those hotels because these people are not the kind of people that really appreciate that kind of help. They're people that are used to living in dilapidated, destitute places. And so if you put them in a 4- or 5-star hotel, of course they're going to tear it up, make it look like the place.
They're going to think they've they hit the lottery.
Yeah,
and our sovereignty is our freedom.
Absolutely. So that's one of the things. Now the other thing is that we're losing our freedoms by virtue of our speech. Right? You hear this thing: hate speech, safe spaces, all these types of things. That they're basically trying to shape then and rejigger, if you will, how we speak to one another, how we approach one another, how we see each other in the world. And the reason why I say how we see each other, because we have to now ignore biological, what's been a biological fact for over 5,000 years, which is, one male, one woman, XXXY.
Him, her, she, them.
We have to, now it's hate speech. If you say, well, I see you're a man. Well, no, I'm not a man. I'm a woman. And you got a full beard, you got a deep voice, you got the big barrel chest, and you're a woman. Oh, okay. And that's hate speech now. See, this is how the crazy Marxists, and I'll get to Marxism in a minute, but this is how the crazy Marxists really want to completely do a 180 on any hegemonic traditional way of thinking or institution. They must do a 180 on it. They must do a complete, turn it upside down, because this is what Karl Marx said, that when we do this, we create enough chaos, turning all these systems upside down, then we can usher in communism. So the ultimate goal with all of this crazy that we're seeing right now is to take away our freedoms, demoralize us in the process. Yuri Bezmenov, who was an ex-KGB agent, he said, look, we've infiltrated every area of American society. Ultimately, we're working on, getting everybody within America to accept communism as the standard. But that goes through a process of demoralization, dehumanization, and then normalization. So we're going through, and finally, after just about 100 years, we see the culmination of this now, where we're being demoralized by virtue of not being able to speak truth with biological evidence. We can't say, you know,
Right.
this person, with being able to declare that we've seen certain things happen in certain elections, and if we do, it's hate speech, you're a white supremacist, you're whatever. To basically, it's taking what is obvious and what is before our eyes, and now having to sort of, well, couch that a little bit because we don't want to offend some other person. We can't speak honest truths anymore, or it can be declared hate speech. And this is all a way of the totalitarian Marxist
Right.
regime to be overlaid onto us. But it's the process of demoralization, because once we say, "Look, I don't feel comfortable saying this anymore. I got to watch what I say," then that's a symptom. It's symptomatic of that we're demoralized.
So you're saying something a little about a parallel. So you're saying something on a parallel note to what I've said on my show before. You might be listening to my show a little bit here. I said, people
Of
think
course.
people say, that they're taking away our First Amendment right, and people say, oh no, they're not taking away our First Amendment right. We still have free speech. Well, but when they create narratives that make us feel guilty for saying a he when we know it's a biological man, when they create a narrative that makes us feel guilty for not liking abortion, or for not liking that a parent or a doctor would transition a child into the opposite sex. They create a narrative that makes us feel bad. They say that we're bad if we think that way. What they've essentially done is not only take away our First Amendment right of free speech, they've also taken away our critical thinking skills. They've taken away our feelings. They've taken away our thoughts. They're controlling our thoughts, because once we feel bad or guilty about thinking a certain way, like you said, we suddenly, when we're talking to somebody, hey, did you know that you suddenly feel guilty. Then the other person picks up on, ooh, well, maybe that's not a good thing to say. And before you know it, everybody's not talking about it anymore. So it must be okay. Nobody disagrees with this anymore. It must be okay for a boy to identify as a girl when he's 5 years old and mutilate his body and convince him that he's a girl for the rest of his life.
Yeah, and if you say anything against it, you're actually the white supremacist, racist, hate monger, fear monger. It's like, well, wait a minute. Just 10 years ago, we would have thought that this was absolutely insane and completely preposterous. Just 10, 15 years ago, a lot of what we see now as gender identity, it would have been a psychosis. It was a psychosis. Right. In the annals of psychology, their directives. It was a psychosis, demonstrable psychosis, when somebody would present a certain way and biologically align a certain way, but say there's something completely different. And now we're allowing this, and any parent that would get in the middle of the sex education, for instance, you want to burn books? Excuse me? No, I think the book burning started when you took Huck Finn and all of these other books off the shelf.
That's right.
Seuss and all. That was the book burning. No, we just don't want inappropriate materials for children that are too immature to really understand what's in those materials. It's okay to have these books around in the upper shelves, and maybe a 12th grader, maybe.
Right.
But to make them available for kindergarten through,
we already have laws that do not allow children to buy tobacco products, go into a strip club, drive cars to a certain age. We already have laws that you can't vote till you're a certain age, and the more they make these lines blurry, the more they open society up to decay. Exactly. And I'm not being I'm not trying to stand more on the moral high ground. I'm just speaking reality, on a lot of this stuff. So, Kevin, what are you doing to help protect? Or do you have any other ways that you think are protecting?
Yeah. So our Second Amendment rights. So really, the entire Bill of Rights is being completely rewritten and done away with. Okay. So our Second Amendment, of course, the 2A amendment, which is our right to own a gun and possess firearms, is being taken away. And so we see over 2,000, I think now, these gun dealers have been raided and closed down. I mean, this is So they knew they couldn't do it in the front door, so they're doing a backdoor
Right.
tactic of looking at, little infringements here and there, little tic tac things, and
Right.
they're going to these gun dealers and saying, "Oh, we found this. One of the guy you sold a gun to 18 years ago, we found the gun in a felony. That means you were irresponsible. We need to shut you." I mean, it's just
I'm
crazy.
hearing it all the time. Or that the IRS is now going in with armed weapons like they did in Montana to a gun store to get their 4473 records, which has nothing to do with financial records that the IRS is actually responsible for. So yeah, we're hearing these stories all over the place. And like you say, I don't think that they're going to try to take away our Second Amendment, but they'll try to regulate it so heavily that we won't want to have it or even use it or be responsible for it.
We won't be able to acquire a firearm
So-
or whatever, or even ammunition in the future. So here's the thing. Here's overarching theme is wokeism is eroding our freedoms. Okay. So wokeism is really Marxism, right? On steroids. All of these things, ESG, DEI, CRT, social justice, liberation theology, Black liberation theology, all of these things are rooted in Marxism. Okay. And Marx, the ultimate goal, of course, for Marx was a communist utopia. All of these methodologies, all of these tactics are being used to erode our freedoms in preparation for the Great Reset, which they already said, look, you're going to own nothing and you're going to love it, period.
Right. Yeah.
This is by 2030. This is an aggressive timeline. This is 7 years. We're going to have a complete, this is Klaus Schwab talking, of course. But the bottom line is that this is demoralizing us to the point that they're trying to dehumanize us and then normalize us with a lower standard of living, a lower standard of rights and God-given rights, lower standard of God-given rights. So we don't have an expectation, right? So we just roll into this reset and we get the $1,800 a month or whatever they're going to give us because they've taken over all our currency and everything else. So it's just central bank digital currency. And this is where they're trying to socially condition us to this level. So we see these tactics of eroding our freedoms in preparation for the ultimate Great Reset. This book I wrote, and I think you've already.
Oh, love it.
Yeah. Woke up. I gave you a copy of it, right?
You gave me a copy of it. Actually, you sure did.
Yeah, and it deals with the whole woke movement. You go to Amazon, you can get a copy of that. Now, you didn't get this one though, William.
Oh, I did not give that one. No, not yet.
DEI in 3D, baby. I mean,
I love it.
I just thought for the designs, the demands, and the dilemmas with DEI, it's not positioned as a as an ideological piece. It's you could be right. It doesn't matter. We're looking at DEI holistically. So I'm taking apart history, what makes it, why did we arrive at this point in the first place? And I'm giving that to you that way. So it's that kind of a book. It's a good read, excellent read. Just came out 3 weeks ago.
Interesting enough, my previous interview that you heard the end of it, the middle, he was talking about DEI and ESG and everything, and the Marxist movement.
He was spot on.
He's the Center for Security Policy. Yeah. So they're an organization outside the government that's investigating all this stuff, going on. But your organization, talk to me a little about your organization. We got time before the next guest comes on what your organization is doing to not only protect freedom and liberty, but protect the individual.
Yeah, so we are the righteous and just and faithful alternative to Black Lives Matter, to BLM. So we're called Every Black Life Matters. Before Black lives can matter generally, every single Black life has to matter specifically.
Right.
Get there. So if every single Black life matters, then of course the life in the womb has to be precious, because that is where these leftist progressives are really targeting Black life for extermination. Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, her exact words is, we don't want the word to get out, but we want to thoroughly exterminate the Negro population. So what we're doing is we're the righteous and moral and faithful alternative to BLM. If you're concerned about the Black community and the various plights, including the plight in the womb that we're having to fight for life for, then you can go to our website, everyblm.com. We're all over the country doing anti-CRT trainings and workshops, anti-DEI. Well, I mean, we're putting proper context on DEI. And we have various trainings and certifications that we can do on that. If you're a company and you're being, squeezed and you're being forced to, incorporate a racial sensitivity training or DEI training, contact us on our website, everyblm.com. We do both, and we'll train and certify all of your employees with the right, purposeful, and unifying perspective. So we're not going to separate, okay, all you whites getting back and all you ethnics come on up front. We're going to make sure that those people back there know that that's ridiculous.
So this is something new to me.
Yeah. So we're the righteous way for you to get the training and certifications that you need, especially if you're doing business with the federal government. They're going to ask, have you had racial sensitivity training? What percentage of your workforce had DEI training? Now you could come to us, every Black Life Matters, and say, look, we got our training and certification for every Black Life Matters. All of our employees are covered. We're good. Now let's do business.
So I didn't even realize that. So the government's making us everybody take DEI training, and then somewhere along the line, you guys got certified to do it. So you're basically doing it within their specs, but doing it the right way, so it's not racially motivated. Is that the right way of saying it?
Yeah, that is a correct. But here's the thing: there is no specs. There is no government. There's no governing body yet. This is all new. Only from the the Biden administration has these sort of requirements have been sort of put in blue states and with the federal government. So if you're being asked these questions, this is you can go to anybody and get the training, and as long as they'll train and certify you, quote unquote, then you'll be good. So we actually do that training, but because there's no governing body, it's wide open, and we do our training the way we do it. But we make sure everybody has a certain amount of hours and certification and actually get it.
How many hours does somebody? And this to me is a huge erosion on freedom.
Yeah.
If you're requiring, the government's requiring people to take some sort of DEI training, which really, as we all know, has nothing to do with equality. It has everything to do with equity. So
equal outcomes at any cost. They're taking fully competent, fully skilled people. They're displacing them and putting people that are marginally competent or know nothing. And everybody's going to suffer with that. I mean, the organization is going to suffer, and the outcome are going to be horrific. So,
if you've got a few extra minutes, the next guest isn't on yet. If you want to have a little bit more time, unless you have to go, let me know. So a question that comes to my mind is, do you have an example of what the government might ask or train for a DEI sensitivity course, and take that same question on how you all would teach it in one of your courses? Can you think of an example?
Well, there's nothing specific, because these are all general things, right? So they ask, have your employee, you and your employee or your employees been trained in racial sensitivity? Basically, are asking, have you taken any CRT? D'Angelo, what's his name? The guy who wrote How to Be an Anti-Racist, Kendi. Type of training, come in and spend tens of thousands of dollars and a week and a half and disparage everybody in the organization happens to be of lighter melanin. That kind of training. They're asking if you've taken that kind of training. These are all ideological Marxist leftists, and they're coming in, and you can't learn racial sensitivity from a Marxist organization. Very reason why is because Marx himself was a diehard racist, and his mentor.
Karl Marx is a racist.
Oh, unbelievably so.
And so
man, I thought you read. If you had read the book, you would have. You would have said. I mean, it's manifest.
No, I know that. I'm acting surprised. Really he was. But because what's interesting is our same government that's trying to teach us sensitivity is trying to use the techniques of Karl Marx to want us to teach to learn sensitivity training, for equality purpose or equity purposes rather, and they're using the same techniques that were taught by a racist. To do those things.
It's preposterous. So here, William. This is what the scenario I give people when I do my talks. I say, look, would you go to David Duke, renowned KKK guy, right, and say, look, we know that you have some theories. We're not going to, against that are racial and all that, but you have this particular thing, a way of actually unifying the various races. Forget your racist theories and your diehard commitment to disparage blacks and Jews. We're going to use your other theories, and we think that they're salvageable. No one in America, no business would say, yeah, we can take David Duke's racial unity, stuff and use that. But we know he's a racist, but let's forget that because his other stuff. You would say, look, if it comes from David Duke and the KKK, we want nothing to do with it.
Right, exactly.
End of story. So the same thing, we should take the same hard line with Marx. Marx was horribly an avowed racist. He had a son-in-law that he called Negrillo and Gorilla, and he disparaged Jews as being the N-words of the Jewish population. He was just absolutely over the top with his racism. And his mentor, Charles Darwin, is the one who actually, invoked and inculcated, if you will, white supremacy here and globally and racism. I mean,
But Charles Darwin supported racism?
Oh, man. So brief story. You still got a couple minutes?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Our next guest.
All right. So here's a brief story for you. I know you already read the book. Well, you're leading me. I know you already read the book.
Exactly right. If the next guy doesn't come on, you got his time. So I'm happy to give it to you because I know I've always known you have more than 15 minutes with the stuff, but like in this forum, I usually do 15 minutes to make it go quicker and bring more people on to get a sample and then interview them longer later. But the next one hasn't come on yet. So finish your story.
Yeah, so here's the deal. So Charles Robert Darwin was the first scientist in all of history to actually come out. If you look at his second book, his first book was he indicated that there was something there because if you read the subtitle of his first book, it says on natural selection for the preservation of most favored races. Okay, so that was, but he didn't go into a whole lot of detail in that book. But he was the first one to say, well, actually, there's race classifications. This was not considered prior to Darwin making this audacious proclamation. Right. In his second book, The Descent of Man, he goes all in. He says, look, you could see my evolutionary theories in effect by looking at the blacks, by looking at the Africans. He says, look, we whites have fully evolved. We plateaued. We're the ideal. We're the supreme race. He basically inculcated white supremacy right there. And then he says, but blacks, on the other hand, again, looking at our evolutionary scale, you see that they're still subhuman. They're gorillas, apes, and savages. Charles Robert Darwin said it all. So he fully inculcated white supremacy for the first time in human history and racism, saying that, look, blacks, they could never be equal. You should always treat them different because they're subhuman. What are you doing?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So this is all brought about by Darwin, who is actually, taught from K through 16, 4 years of college. Throughout all of our accreditation and curriculum and academic resources, Darwin's theories are throughout. So Darwin, so some people would say, well, I mean, how could you say that? There was white supremacy because there was slavery. No. Slavery was here as a result of economic opportunism. So what if you had 50 acres and you had just you and your two sons, and then somebody came by with some folks, they just got off the ship, African slaves, and they're going to sell it to you for $5 for each. And you say, well, I got 50 acres. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to get all this, all this stuff to market. Great. Bring them on. I don't have to feed them anything, really. One meal a day. I just need to keep barely alive so they can do the work. And that was what that was until Darwin came out and people started to read Darwin. And they said, well, wait a minute. Why do we even have to treat these guys like they're subhuman? It's okay to rape the women and the kids and do whatever we do to them because they're not even, God's not going to hold us accountable for that. This is a subhuman species, right? So
Kevin, I got to interrupt you because our next guest just showed up.
Okay.
And I always love talking to you because you're on the money and I want people to learn more about you. And I'm going to bring you on again soon so we can finish this conversation.
Perfect.
Yeah, I've had your website playing at the bottom too.
Yes, everyblm.com, and these two books, DEI in 3D and Woke Up. You need them both if you're going to understand this crazy culture we're living in right now. Thank
All
you,
right,
William.
Kevin. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. God bless you.
Bye. Hey, Carmelo, how are you, my friend?
Hey, doing well, Bill. It's good to see you. Long
Good to
time.
see you too. I know it's been a while. I figured I let the other guests. I said, hey, look, I said my next guest hasn't showed up, so let's just keep on rolling until he gets here. So I'm glad you made it here for a few minutes.
Please excuse my tardiness.
Oh no, it's all right. We'll have to, you won't get as much time as everybody else, but I'll bring you on again another time. But I know
Absolutely.
from meeting with you in Orlando a couple years ago that you're working on some things that involve freedom and liberty and protecting our country. There, are you still working on those things?
Yeah, that's Grassroots of America is the organization that we have locally, and yeah, we're doing lots of things with respect to election integrity, registering new Republicans, and getting the vote out. Most recently, we had Tom Holman, who's the former director of ICE, I believe.
That's right.
He's the one that basically handed AOC her lunch on that famous broadcast that you can see on YouTube.
Or her $29 million, because she was broke when she took office, and now she's worth $29 million from what I'm told. So Carmelo, talk to me a little bit. Where do you think that we're losing freedom in America?
I mean, I think it starts with the media. The media is just biased without question. They are not reporting the truth. They are not reporting facts. I mean, I think it was today, wasn't it? Or yesterday, Mitch McConnell froze up. And I don't think that's been on the news when the occupant of the White House just loses it, can't complete a sentence. That's not showed on the news. People don't see that for the most part. And, the laptop from hell, all those things, that nonsense of a deal that they offered that man. And with the persecution of the greatest president we've ever had, at least in my lifetime, that is top news, and all they want to do is take the man down. And election integrity, the freedom of the vote is the most important thing, and they are committing election interference every single day.
And I think you're right when you talk about how our media is infringing on our freedoms, because the more more narratives they create, and the deeper the web of narratives that they perpetuate, only makes Americans think differently. It makes us react differently. It controls our thoughts. It controls which essentially controls our elections. And so the more they perpetuate these narratives, the more they control us into doing not only what they want us to do. And look, we can think it's for money, or we can think it's for power, but either way, as a result, we as Americans are going to lose our freedom and liberty as a result. Do you agree with that?
Yes, it's the Communist Manifesto. If you tell enough lies, if you tell the same lie enough times, people will believe it. It'll become part of their DNA. Only, you know what I believe? I believe the greater part of our country is not stupid. We are very smart. We are very aware of what's going on. And for the most part, people stay quiet. They don't want to ruffle the feathers because they know it's at risk for themselves personally and for the country. So when election day comes out, it's going to be overwhelming. That's what I feel. It's going to be overwhelming.
So, Carmelo, what is your organization doing to protect liberty and freedom in America? And what do you do? How active are you to be able to keep that going?
I haven't been as active as I once was due to my work commitments for my business. However, the group Grassroots is still very, very active in the areas I mentioned earlier, and we have monthly gatherings where we bring in presenters, national presenters like Tom Holman, and we invite folks. We are sharing, just like when I found Grassroots of America, I didn't know what to do. I wanted to do something. I didn't want to sit on my hands and watch what was going on.
You actually founded it yourself?
No, I didn't find it. No, it was found by somebody else. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's been in existence for a long time.
But when you say, I guess when you say you found it, when you actually found out about it.
When I came across it, correct. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. When I came across it, it gave me the opportunity to do something that I could do, and whether it's presenting, knocking on doors, getting people to register, just getting the word out. and just inviting more people that they're Americans. They want the right thing done, not the wrong thing. And when they find out that they can do something, whatever their talent or their gift is, whether it's, licking envelopes, making phone calls, knocking on doors, whatever it is, everybody has an opportunity to chip in.
Carmelo, I got to tell you something. This interview is going to be short, and it's been I've been waiting for it for a long time. But what you just now said is one of the most impactful, good things I've heard, good suggestions I've heard on my forum in a while. And I've heard a lot of good ideas, a lot of good thoughts, but you've given a very simple solution for people to do to not only be involved but make a difference when it comes to freedom and liberty in our country and the future of our country, which is just simply like licking envelopes if you can, or getting involved with a local organization.
Right.
I can't thank you enough for that. Any other ideas?
Become a committeeman. Become a committeeman in your community, in your county. Get involved. When I got involved, in my county, the wave was against us. The status quo, just like in DC, but on a more micro level. But the status quo wants to keep their hold on what they have. They don't want to let it go. But we just have to keep pushing forward. Become a committeeman. A committeeman. Precinct strategy. That's what I found. I didn't find it. That's what it came across my screen before
Right.
I found the opportunity with Grassroots of America, and it's the least you could do. It's the most basic thing you could do in your communities. Become a commitment, right, so you can help contribute to elections.
Carmelo, I want to thank you very much for coming on today. I've been bugging you to stay get on my show for a while because when I met you, I knew your passion for our country and doing something to improve it, and that's why it meant a lot to me to get you back on. And thank you so much for coming on today. We're gonna do this again sometime. All right?
Yes, Bill. Thank you for your persistence, and you stay well.
Carmelo, thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too.
Our next guest up is Jim Marter. You're running for Congress again, my friend. How are you?
Hey, William Wallace. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me again.
All right. Well, I'm going to continue the casual theme here today.
I'm with you. Look, in my studio, I do that. But you know what? I tell you, I remember interviewing you last time when you ran for Congress, and then I saw you at Mar-a-Lago.
That's right. That's right. Saw CPAC and then Mar-a-Lago. That was great.
And CPAC and now I was in Missouri 2 weeks ago, and some guy hands me a card that says Jim Marter for Congress, and I went. He says, "Can you interview this guy?" I went, "Can I?" He's, "I've already interviewed him."
That's right. That's right. That's my friend Paul. So he was there. I was almost there, but we had Republican Day in Springfield, Illinois, so I was double booked those couple days. So that's where I was at.
Well, so let me ask you the question: because I do these short interviews to find out where people think we're losing freedom in America. Where do you think we're losing freedom in America?
It's multifaceted, right? So let's start with medical mandates, mask mandates, vaccine mandates. How many people had to face their employer and their livelihood with a decision that, well, if you don't do this, you're going to lose your job, right? You're threatened, you're coerced, those kind of things. The government's spending us into oblivion. So we don't get much say in this in Washington because our representatives aren't representing us, but they're spending every dollar and penny of our children, our grandchildren, and probably a couple great grandchildren generations into the future. And right. Sooner or later, it's going to catch up, and it's going to catch up, I think, much sooner than later at this point.
Exactly right.
Unless we get in there and fix it. So people are seeing that directly. They're seeing it in inflation, gas prices, food prices. I see people talking about how food prices are up, 2 to 3 times what they used to pay just a few years ago. Even under President Trump, just from that point in time. I mean,
right.
It's hitting working families hard. It's hitting working Americans hard. And I feel like people are waking up to that more so than in, let's say, the last 2 election cycles. It took a little time for some of this to kind of hit them, but it's hitting hard. COVID was kind of an excuse, so everyone blamed it on that. That's over, but they're trying to bring it back. Those are just a couple ways we're seeing it. In Illinois, we're seeing attacks, and maybe you don't see this in all the states, but we're seeing attacks on literally our First Amendment and Second Amendment liberties. They are passing laws in Springfield that are unconstitutional, both for our federal constitution, which we're protected from, and from our state constitution, but they don't really care, and they're getting away with it until the courts shut them down. So we're under an illegal Second Amendment firearm ban here in Illinois. And here's the thing: real people are being affected by it right now. If you want to purchase a certain type of firearm, you're not allowed to do it. If you're a dealer and you want to sell it, you're not allowed to sell it. So they're literally doing this to crush those businesses so that they go away. And even if the law gets cleared, we're not going to have very many options left. So these things are happening every day, and right here in Illinois where I live, and all across the state, and of course across the country. Freedoms are being attacked on. It's a multifaceted war, attack on freedom. It's everything from parental rights and their responsibilities for their children. The government wants to step in and tell you your child's got to listen to this theory and that theory, and they need to be more indoctrinated in everything from sexual indoctrination to political indoctrination. And so the front of attack is coming at us from every angle, unbelievably rapid pace. And, we have to stop it. We just have to stop it.
Well, this is very interesting that because I didn't realize how much your Second Amendment rights were under attack in Illinois.
It's outrageous.
So what other laws have they done? I mean, I know we're experiencing here in Louisiana where they're going to gun businesses and basically shutting them down, for little small violations or whatever. They didn't put a dot, over the I, on the 4473 of somebody's name. And that gun 18 years or that gun, got used in a crime, 3 years after it was purchased. But because you didn't put dot over the I, we're taking away your license. I mean, I'm making it up, of course, but I've always said they're not going to get rid of our Second Amendment rights or say, oh no, you still have them. We're just going to regulate it so much. You're not going to be able to buy them. You're not going to be able to sell them. You're not going to be able to have them. You're not going to be able to buy the bullets. And inflation's going to be so high, you're not going to be able to afford them. So now you've been involved, and I want to remind people, like we talk about our freedoms under attack. And if you have another answer to that question, I want you to have the chance to say that too. But I've known you for a while, and you're very passionate about being involved in your community, and you're taking that passion and running for Congress. So I want to ask people what they're doing to protect freedom and liberty. Is that your action to help protect freedom and liberty?
Look, that's one. I think first of all is whenever you can, do not comply to the illegal, unconstitutional usurpation of your constitutional rights. You need to stand up to it, whether it's just vocally and speaking out, or whether it's, I'm not doing it, and challenging those that are requiring you to do things that are not, within their rights over you and as overlords to you. So those are the things. Getting involved in politics. One of your previous guests just mentioned becoming a precinct committeeman. I'm a precinct committeeman. I've been one for 8 years now. I'm also the Republican Party chairman in my county. This is my third term at that. I couldn't be that if I wasn't a elected precinct committeeman first. There's a lot going on, and until I got involved, I didn't know much about it. And we need more, let's say, warriors within the ranks of our Republican Party to help fight what's going on, because some of the people that we've had weren't fighters for our freedoms and for our rights. They were more of a go along to get along crowd. And so it's important to get involved, and it might be that, maybe it's something else, maybe it's with your church, maybe it's with other groups. There's lots of great grassroots groups that do specific things. Some of them are election integrity type groups. Others focus on different things, but they're helping political candidates. Maybe it's awareness. Maybe it's something like, I'm very passionate about the pro-life cause. So there's a lot of organizations that are out there literally fighting for the rights of freedom of individuals, including the unborn. And so to me, it's whatever you can do, get involved. And if it's running for office, look at what's available locally. What offices, is there a problem with in your jurisdictions? What can you do? Where can you step up and help? So,
and what I like that you've done is something similar what Carmelo did right before you, is that you've broken it down to something easy. Because a lot of people, when you say get involved, get in the fight, go do something, people think that they got to go wave flags at the Capitol, or they got to go to the state Capitol with pitchforks, or they feel like they have to really go out and put themselves out. So they get a little timid, they get a little scared. They say, "Oh gosh, I don't want to be that involved, but I want to do something." And maybe in their heart, they know that what's going on is wrong. In their mind and conscience, they know that we're being suppressed, or they are feeling the walls closing in, whether it be from inflation, government regulation, or whatever the case may be. They're feeling their freedoms infringed on, but they don't quite realize it, exactly it's what it is, but they still don't want to push their elbows out. They don't want to pick up the pitchfork. And I tell people, we don't have to pick up pitchforks. We don't have to use our Second Amendment right. We can do this peacefully by doing simple things of getting involved, voting, election integrity, maybe just sending some emails out, maybe just being involved in your church. Because like you said, even your church is something where just getting like-minded people together.
Yeah. And even things as simple as, if you know somebody in your family friend circle that isn't voting, but they're, let's say, thinking right, make sure they vote. I mean, our voter turnout, voter suppression has been happening because of people feel disenfranchised. We need those people to turn out, because the other side, that's exactly what they want us to do, is not show up. So could be as simple as making sure all your family member has voted. Check with them. Have you voted yet? Get out there and make sure you vote. Every election matters. The primaries are coming up this cycle. For us in Illinois, it's March 19th, 2024. But there's always a primary or a local election or the federal election in the fall. So make sure friends and family are voting. Make sure they're voting the right way. Help educate them if they don't know who to vote for, right? So these are all things you can do.
Yeah, you're right. And look, I always tell people, if you don't vote, someone else is going to vote for you.
That's right.
And people go, well, what do you mean? They think it's crazy. That's a conspiracy thinking. No, we're hearing stories all the time now. If they see that you're a registered voter, but you're not using your registration, those are the registrations that eventually get stolen or used for either the mail-in ballots or used for other thing, for nefarious purposes to be able to get the votes that they want. And that's why we have to go vote, because if we don't vote, they're going to use your vote and it's magnified by 10. Exactly. Because for every time every person doesn't vote and that they steal, they're going to be able to get more votes than that for other people who don't vote, is the point I'm making. So by you voting, you put up a brick wall, if you will, from somebody else being able to use it. Is that what you're finding?
Absolutely.
So our next guest is going to be up here in a few minutes, but until they come on, I want to keep you on, Jim, if you got a few minutes, because you're passionate about running for Congress. You've done it once before. Can I ask how close you got last time?
So the last primary, I was second. There were 5 in the race. I was second, so pretty close, within a 4.5% or so. And
y'all have close primaries in Illinois?
No, they're effectively open primaries. So anybody can vote in any primary, and we absolutely see crossover. So a lot of times you'll see, a certain percentage Democrats coming over specifically to vote for let's say the least the least Republican, and if they can influence a primary like one with 5 people in it, they certainly come in and do that. So those are some challenges we face here in Illinois with that open primary system.
So is your open primary system like the one we have in Louisiana? We have a jungle primary, we call it.
No, it's not that. It's simply that you can pick you can pick your ballot on the day you walk in to vote, or, go to the clerk's office and vote by mail now, which is another problem we have. But those are things that you can decide, one cycle I'm a Republican, the next I'm a Democrat. You can flip back and forth, no question asked, no, waiting period, no verification, or etc.
I didn't quite, like I said, everybody has all these unique election laws, and it's interesting to me because you would think it should be pretty much common sense how our election laws should be across the country. And you hear, like, you all have the open primary, we have a jungle primary in Louisiana, but it always seems that the wrong guys keep getting in office. The wrong, the rhinos or the squishy, and it's not even about being a rhino or being the ultra right conservative. It's just about somebody that gets elected that does the right thing, that votes values and votes on principles instead of being able to be molded into a narrative and voting by way of the narrative to make everybody feel good around them instead of principles, which are like adults. Like, you got to be the adult thing sometimes and work and have a job and and do the right thing. So you came pretty close. You were second to last time. You've jumped in the race. I'm hoping that you do better this time. I hope you make it this time.
Yeah, I feel we have a strong team, great grassroots. I've got great and obviously vastly improved name recognition in the district. We're going to finish first this time, and anyone else in the race, we're gonna waltz all over them. So that's where it's going.
So far right now, it's just, well, you got another year because it's not till next year for the midterm.
Yeah, we have ours is March 19th, so it's coming up fast, right? So we got a few months, and then we're in the final stretch, and then we've got we got 8 months to the November election.
So this race coincides with the presidential election, which that you're in right now. So what will you do as a congressman to protect freedom and liberty in America?
So in a nutshell, I am a House Freedom Caucus type Republican. I'll join the House Freedom Caucus. I'm going to vote to defend freedom, liberty, and cut the size and scope of the federal government. That's kind of my mission in life, is to slash the spending, the craziness that's going on in Washington, the institutions we don't need, the spending we don't need, and the craziness that you see with, career politicians who make their livelihood in there for, like a Joe Biden or a Mitch McConnell who's been there forever. And they tend to, exit this life on earth from there. And we need to stop that. We need to end it.
Well, I just went to a Freedom Caucus dinner the other night, and I saw Louis Gohmert last week, who's one of the main people in there with it. And so I don't know if you're familiar with those guys or not.
Yes.
But now your Freedom Caucus, you'll have one in Illinois, no doubt. Then,
well, so
a state Freedom Caucus.
There actually is a state Freedom Caucus in Illinois. That's our Illinois legislator. We have 7 Republicans that are members of that. Sure, that actually all Republicans should be a member of it, but we currently have 7. They are great guys. I know them all. One of them is he's a state rep downstate, Chris Miller. He's married to Congresswoman Mary Miller, who is a House Freedom Caucus member. So my favorite congressperson from Illinois, bar none, is Congresswoman Mary Miller. Awesome House Freedom Caucus Congress member and awesome representative for those of us who love freedom here in the state of Illinois.
And look, and to your point, it's not just about freedom; it's about the things that reign in freedom, that don't not control it, reign in, but bring it closer to us, like lowering taxes, being fiscally responsible, but also in not letting all these bureaucracies and agencies circumvent our Constitution, creating rules and laws that do such. For instance, the ATF, the IRS are always creating these rules and regulations within them that they didn't have to go through Congress for, but it always seems to conflict, with our foundation, the foundations of our Constitution of freedom and liberty and, and helping everybody prosper.
Exactly. It's high time we address those things. When's the last time Congress took on any of these things? It's a rhetorical question, by the way.
Exactly. So how can somebody help you? What's your website how can somebody help you be able, if they want to be involved in your campaign?
So it's my last name, Marter, M-A-R-T-E-R, the number 4, Congress, and .us.com should also get you there. So marterforcongress.us. We have a volunteer tab, all kinds of things you can do, especially if you're here in district. If you're not, you can help support me by sending a donation to the campaign, and I will be voting for you when I get to Congress.
I love this. Absolutely love this. Any other final words there, Jim? I mean, this is going to be something. This will be something to keep up with you on, because now that people got a chance to meet you as being somebody who's real conscious about where our freedoms are being lost, and know that they got a year from now, a little over a year from now, to really help you and support you and be involved. Any final words?
Yeah, just America first, build the wall, shut down the bureaucracies in Washington, and I'll just always going to stand for faith, family, and freedom.
Jim, thank you so much.
All right, thank you, William.
I really appreciate you, sir. Thanks for coming on today. I'll bring you on again during the while you're campaigning.
All right, sounds great.
Thank you, sir.
God bless.
God bless you. So now we're waiting for our next guest to come on. He's having a little bit of technical difficulty. I just got a text from him over there. But what I'm hoping on is that from these forums that people are watching me do for freedom and liberty is not just the idea of being able to shout about freedom and liberty and scream freedom and liberty because it sounds good, but because it's actually truly being eroded in our country. And when you listen to all these different opinions from so many different people and you hear what they have to say, it might spark an interest. It might not be, one guest might not have it say it the exact way that you need to hear something, but another guest might come along and you might go, you know what? They're saying something. I can connect with them a little bit differently. And by doing that, my goal is to be able to get more and more people on the freedom train to be able to find ways for themselves to promote it and be able to protect it in our country. I do a regular I do a regular show with my Louisiana legislation forum, so our election forum. So if you are in Louisiana, or even if you're not, you can listen to some of these candidates. You can find out if they're for freedom or not. Even though they're candidates in Louisiana, you might be surprised how many of them bring in a lot of national issues that not only affect our state, but could affect our country, and it can even affect your state. And sometimes they have really great ideas, and that's the whole reason why I bring all these different candidates on the forum. So you'll have to check out the Louisiana election forum. I've got one tonight at 6:00 here on my William Wallace for America Facebook page. You can also find my shows on William Wallace for America on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Cloud Hub, on all podcast apps. And if you really like freedom and you really like liberty, I'd love it if you went to my website at williamwallace.net. You can click on merchandise. I have a lot of merchandise that promotes freedom and liberty in our country, in ourselves. You're gonna feel good about it, because when you wear a shirt that talks about freedom and liberty, sometimes people walk up to you and say, I didn't think about, I take it for granted. They'll say, I took things for granted. I didn't think about, making more people aware of it. And that's what this is about. This forum, while it sounds like common sense, those products sound like they might be common sense, and you kind of go, it's all that. We know that already. The problem is sometimes knowing it is a lot different than spreading the message. It's a lot different than saying something and doing something. We take our freedom and liberty for granted. We take being able to walk down the street, go to the store for granted. It's a simple way of saying it. I know it sounds like common sense, but the more they put cameras up on our street corners, and that's, some people, well, that's about safety, community safety. That helps everybody feel safe. Well, it might make you feel safe because you don't feel the freedom leaving you. You don't feel that. You don't even really notice it because that camera provides some safety, a safety feeling. But the reality is the freedom that you're losing as a result is far greater than the little bit of safety that you're receiving. Because you think about it, these cameras really don't really do anything for us. I'm looking at here. This is So our candidate, our next guest is having a hard time, and we're letting them know that we're on the air here. So the reality is, we look at those cameras, we think they're doing something, but when you really look at like how often, I mean, the cameras show people doing crimes often. Oh, there's the criminal doing this crime. Well, the problem is, does it always catch them? And how many of them are they catching? And if you look at how few people it catches and convicts, and think of all the freedom that I mean, I know you think, well, I'm not doing anything wrong anyway. I don't care if they see me walking down the street. I don't care if they see me going in the store. I don't care if they see me parking my car. I don't care if they see me parking my car that has the expired brake tag on it or the expired license. You see where I'm going with this? When they start being intrusive, think of the time that you forgot to get your brake tag. Think of the time that you forgot to update your license plate. I know it's a responsibility. I get it. As a citizen, we need to be able to have that response. But also think about this. Government burdens us with the taxes. They burden us with the regulations. They burden us with having to do all these different things. And then they tax us and fine us if we don't do that. And how much safety is it actually creating? I get it. I had people the other night say, well, it's about community safety. Certainly understand that, but how much safety are we getting in relation to how much freedom that we're losing? And when you look at it that way and you really think about it, then is it really worth it? I'm only throwing the question out there. I'm not saying that I'm 100% right. I'm simply saying that it's food for thought, because while the cameras might sound good, the debit cards, the electronic funds, if they get rid of cash, now not only are they watching you everywhere you're going, they're also watching everything you're buying. So the camera eventually sees you parking your car, or let's start here. You leave in your house and you're going 21 miles an hour in a 20-mile-an-hour zone, and the cameras are able to follow you. Look, let me tell you, it doesn't happen right now, and I get it. They don't have speed cameras in some areas, but it's not too far-fetched to think that you're going to be leaving your house one day, and because you're being tracked on cameras, you're going to go 21 miles an hour, you're 20, you're going to speeding ticket. They're going to notice that, you didn't get your registration renewed right away. There's another ticket. Or maybe your brake tag. Or maybe you're a day late on your car insurance. Okay? Whatever the case may be. And again, the argument is public safety. The argument is, oh, well, those people should be responsible. They should have paid everything ahead of time. But life happens. And for many people, there's a delay. For some people, things happen. They get delayed. But when that happens, is it right for the government to be able to have those cameras on you ready and waiting? I mean, our tax dollars are getting us what these days? So now we're paying more in tax dollars, more cameras being watched. Now they're going to have now if they get the digital cards, where now you go buy something. Let's say you go to the store, they see you going in. Now you get your digital card. They see what you're buying. They know what you're doing with whatever it might be. And you go, well, I'm not buying anything illegal. And maybe you're not. Probably not. But do you want the government knowing everything? And let's stop here with that example for 1 second and go, okay, you're not doing anything wrong. We should all be responsible citizens. We should all be paying our license fees, our registration fees, our driver's license fees, our road fees, our tax fees, and the list goes on and on and on. It's our responsibility to do that. Get it. It's our responsibility to drive the speed limit. Get it. Our responsibility to buy things that are only appropriate, legal, whatever. I get it. But once we give government permission to be able to watch us, track us, and don't think they're not tracking you or watching you or tracking you or both with the digital currency card, because your bank can do it. Your bank can tell you what you spent, what you bought, how much is spent, when, who, where, why, all the details are on there on your receipt. It can be all online. There's not anything to believe to make you not believe, rather, that when they take it to the next step, or that they can't take it to the next step, to be able to do it, or the government to be able to do it. Your bank can do it. Your cards can do it. What's to happen? Because what happens, point I was going to make here a minute ago, sorry, that once you've given government permission, once you've given them the ability to track you on cameras, to be able to watch your every move, go down every street, it's happening everywhere. Oh, it's all good. We got this federal grant to put 10 cameras up in our community. Isn't that great? Yay, we got some more cameras. The more willing we are to give government the permission to watch us on cameras, track us when digital, if they switch to digital currency, the more it's going to, or the easier it's going to be for them to be more invasive. What's going to happen when they can come into our homes with cameras? Well, that's not going to happen. It's our private property. Okay. They're already putting smart meters on your house, tracking every bit of utility that you're using. They're putting them on your water bill now. I get it. They got to track how much water consumption you use. But we all know what's coming down the pipe because we hear it coming out of California. Once they're tracking us on our digital meters, and they're saying, and the rolling blackouts happen, what's going to happen when they're tracking everybody in the neighborhood? They say, oh, too much energy is being used in this zip code during this peak hour of time, so we need to do a rolling blackout because it's environmentally safe. Because global warming and all, right? The more this is not about a conspiracy theory. It's not about having somebody be able to say, I don't care if they're tracking me. It's not about them it's not about, how to word this the right way. It's not about being worried about that you're not doing anything wrong or how much the government's watching you. It's about not putting up a barrier. It's about allowing the government to take down the veil of privacy, of independence. It's all about, the more we allow cameras and tracking, the more we allow government to open other doors in the future. Point I was getting to. Went the long way about it. I'm sorry about that. But the more that we allow government to do now, the more they're going to do later. And the easier it's going to be for them to do things later. And we can't even imagine what they could possibly do later. I mean, 20, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, we didn't even think they could have this many cameras all over the place. Maybe it was conceptualized then. Maybe I have to go back 50 years. Maybe I'm getting a little bit older and I don't realize how much time is going by. But the reality is, technology, the way it's advancing, we already hear that, how many TVs they've been suspicious of being able to listen into your home. So what's going to happen if now government's able to tap into your home and you go, you know what? I'm not doing anything wrong in my home either. I'm not doing anything wrong on the streets. They can watch me. I'm not buying anything bad. They can track me. I'm not saying anything wrong in my home. So I'm okay if they listen in on me in the home. I'm not doing anything wrong anyway. So at what point does government stop? At what point do we not allow them to go further with an invasion of our privacy? Again, let me repeat this. It might not be a big deal to think of the cameras, not do anything wrong. We're going to catch a few bad guys. Is that little bit of the extra bad guys that you get worth all the extra freedom you're losing? Now, look, don't get me wrong. I'm not taking away from the concept of cameras by law enforcement that's really trying to use them to make a difference. I understand the good intentions of it. I really do. I got lots of people, friends in law enforcement, completely understand the good intentions of it. I understand also that there could be quite a need for it. But if we keep allowing government to get an inch, they are going to take a mile. And we can have that conversation later. My next guest is up here. Kayleigh Kozak, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm so good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic. I had a guest not be able to show up, so I was doing some commentary while I was waiting for you. And the minute I see you, I get excited because I had a chance. I'm gonna say this way. I had a chance to meet you in person in Arizona last year, and the reason why I've been wanting you on my show, which we've got some time to talk about today, you're the last interview today, is that I know how hard you're working, not just for freedom, which is my main topic today, but how hard you're working for children and how much you put yourself. I mean, like I hate to say it this way, but it's like you have almost drained your own blood, sweat, and tears of yourself and put yourself out there to save children, protect women, which all this protects freedom. But you've gone beyond that, and I'm so excited to have you on today because I want more people to learn about you and what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me on. It's really a privilege.
Well, first question that I always ask people to get the ball rolling is, where do you think we're losing freedom in America?
First Amendment rights. Freedom of
Wow.
speech. Gone.
Gone. You think it's already gone?
Absolutely. I do.
Now, I think they've learned how to take it. So I've repeated this over and over again. I'll say it for you because I know you haven't heard it. And again, I want to have you have all the chance to talk here in a minute. But what happens is we haven't lost our First Amendment right. What happened is they've learned, the left, the communists, the establishment-minded people have learned how to create narratives that take away our ability to not only express our free thoughts, but feel guilty about what we're thinking in such a way that it suppresses our desire to share common sense or to share, the good word or to share good information, because then we feel guilty about it. And that's picked up by the people around us. So now our children go, ooh, wait, dad's whispering that. That must be bad. And so that it controls our thoughts. And that's what's happening with this. Is that kind of where you're going with that?
Yeah, but I think in a way it is gone because I think they have learned how to get ahead. I mean, let's give the left credit where they deserve credit. They are strategic. They know exactly what they're doing when they're getting ahead with this. And I think that the reason I feel like it's gone or it's going is because our children are seeing, even with social media, that's how we communicate now, right?
Right.
And so they're seeing that, oh, my mom and dad are saying things or posting things and they're receiving backlash. So that is showing them that the example, they can't say what they want to say without facing repercussion. And so in a way it's silencing them, and it's like making them fear that their freedom of speech is gone. They will face repercussion.
So let's talk about how you got started on. It's not freedom isn't always seen as just a quest for freedom. Freedom isn't always seen as you're fighting for the First Amendment, you're fighting for the Second Amendment. Sometimes, freedom is in the arena that we find ourselves fighting in, which in my opinion, and I'm not trying to lead you on this one, in my opinion, that's kind of how you got into the fight for freedom, is you got put into an arena that had freedom in it. We catch the crowd up? I know what it is, but can you share with people who might not know what got you involved, in this quest for freedom, in this where we are now?
Yeah, and the arena that I was thrown into was the arena of being a victim of childhood sexual abuse. That was arena I never wanted to be in, yet an adult, chose to put me there. And so to have to fight for my freedom in that and my rights, I had to go up against him and then go up against the system when I was a child and now today. One of the things that I'm facing is that people have said to me, what happened to you happened. It's in the past. That is true. But what people don't realize is that things are still happening today and now.
Other people.
And exactly. And to me personally and to other people, it's happening to children. And because we're living in this culture right now that's so concerned for pedophiles and their rights and all the things with them, and this urgency to normalize pedophilia, that victims are losing their rights and their freedom because that's where the focus is. And so I'm absolutely fighting for the now, not just what happened to me when I was a child.
Now you had Kayleigh's Law. Yeah, and so you were a victim. You had to fight the person that abused you. They went to jail, right? And then you created a law to let you know, let you know, and also to help other victims find out when their perpetrators were getting out of jail. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's a little bit more complex.
Yeah, I said it's simple, to kind of, but that's kind of the bait. I mean, it's kind of the way it works. Or can you elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah, so Kayleigh's Law, what it does is it gives victims and survivors of sexual abuse natural life protection from their perpetrator. The reason that this law is so critical and so important is because prior to the law, a victim's only protection fell within the terms of their perpetrator's probation status. And what we're seeing now with the sense of urgency for these guys, these pedophiles, is that they're actually terminating and lifting the perpetrator's probation, which therefore was leaving victims without any protection. This law ensures that a victim will have natural life protection from their abuser, regardless of the terms of their perpetrator's probation status.
So natural life of the perpetrator, or natural life of the victim?
It's of the perpetrator.
Okay.
If a victim passes away, if a victim
Well,
passes
right.
away, then
And the reason why I said that is because there's always like little loopholes sometimes that legislation, and then the lobbyists, and then the lobbyists for the bad people say, oh, well, we can't put the life on. What happens if it's the life of the child? You know
listen.
where I'm going. Yeah.
When we originally drafted Kayleigh's Law, we put that the injunction was valid for the defendant's lifetime. In most states, lifetime actually does not have a legal definition, which is kind of crazy, right?
But that's why I asked the question, right?
Yeah. So when we drafted it, it fell under in Arizona. We're talking Arizona specifically. When it fell under an injunction, even though we said lifetime, there was no definition. And so an injunction is only valid for 1 year in the state of Arizona. So we had to go back in and redraft language. We had to amend the law the next session to ensure that it was a natural life protection. And people came out of the woodworks. We had prosecutors, we had defense attorneys, we had sex offenders themselves, we had their mommies there. This isn't fair. A natural lifetime is a hefty sentence. Well, so is living with being sexually abused. It's a lifetime sentence that I didn't ask for. And quite honestly, why would a perpetrator want to contact their victim anyways? So it's crazy.
It makes them feel powerful.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's that. But even so, I haven't spoken to you since, I have, but not specifically about legislation. This last legislative session in Arizona, we actually had to amend the law again. So it was our third session because we was talking about language and closing the loopholes, right? So we will never, ever be bulletproof, ever. But we can narrow the gaps. And that's my ultimate goal, right? Is to narrow the gaps to ultimately help victims and survivors. But we had to draft an amendment that would forbid a judge from sealing or setting aside a natural life injunction, because in less than a year, it's already tried to happen here in Arizona.
So a judge who's supposed to be on a victim's side basically
or justice even.
Wait, what?
Or a justice, just the side of justice.
Yeah, exactly. So it is now is powerful enough to be able to say, "Hey, look, we're gonna say that this person's life sentence is already lifted." Is that how that worked?
Yep, it is.
Isn't amazing.
That crazy?
So the reason why I wanted to go down this road for another minute with you, even though you and I have talked about this before, I always feel like there's more people who don't know, need to know, but also when you look at it as how much freedom and liberty is protected by your law, but affected by people who do this kind of thing, because now your natural life, you're affected by this for the rest of your life. And yeah, it happened in the past, and a lot of people want to say let that go, but people who've not been victims don't realize the ramifications that you're faced with for the rest of your life. But you're a strong person. You've become a great mom. You got a great family as a result, and you're doing a fantastic job. And I think part of that is because you're doing such a good job helping so many other people with that same passion and how you're doing this. What are you working on now? What's your mission now? Do you have, or are you still have the fight for Kayleigh's Law in Arizona? But what are you working on now?
So Kayleigh's Law is passed here in Arizona and in the state of Wisconsin. Last session, we drafted in Missouri and Texas. Unfortunately, the law didn't really move much. We dropped it in too late in the session. Next legislative session, starting in January, we've already drafted in 5 states. So I don't get too excited until it's actually dropped in with a bill number.
Are you in Louisiana yet?
No, Louisiana is not a state yet.
Talk to me after we get off
Let's
air.
make it happen. So 5 states specifically for Kayleigh's Law. But with that, I've also found all these loopholes in the system because, again, I'm living this now. It's like we've seen a full cycle of turning a victim, turning an abuser in, and then them going through the process. And now they're letting these guys off probation, or they're changing the rules or what have you. I mean, they are not transparent or forthcoming with victims at all.
Right.
When they are going to most cases don't even go to trial. They're just a plea deal. And so they're being very deceitful in what actually goes on. I mean, they told my parents, when my parents accepted a plea deal, to try to spare me the trauma of a trial, that he would be on probation for his 2 lifetime sentences. And he is petitioned 3 times in 5 years to have his lifetime sentence lifted. So being really specific with the language and creating laws within the country that make and force people to be actually transparent about what's really going on. Also, to bring attention to the loopholes that exist in the law and create new laws that ultimately protect victims and survivors. But also, I'm really big on accountability.
Right.
We need policy to hold these people, everybody, like the prosecutors, elected officials, accountable. There's no accountability anymore anywhere. And there's so much power in such a small percentage. It's scary. And people think, oh, there's laws. Most of them are just simply recommendations.
Right.
They don't have any grit to them. There's no teeth. So we need to revamp the laws. So I'm working on specific policy, mostly in Arizona, because that's where I live. I know, last session I had a couple bills, had an encounter with the governor.
Yeah. I saw the little video at the restaurant.
Can you believe that? What are the odds?
Right. Exactly. I love it.
What are the odds? But yeah, just really focusing on legislation in that aspect, and hopefully connecting with people along the way that want to see the necessary changes for the laws to catch up with where we're at today as a society.
You're not only you're amazing, and you're just amazing, and I'm bragging about you because, like I said, I want other people to really see what I see is that you've not only survived, okay, but you use their instance to be able to help others. You've kept on the fighting as they've tried to break those walls down. You fought to keep the walls up, which not only protected your freedoms, it's protected so many other. You have protected thousands of people's freedoms with your actions and your ability and your from what happened, your experience, what happened to you, your power as a person and as a victim has protected the freedoms and liberties of thousands of other people. And I know I kind of went a long way to say that, and I'm trying to basically, I have a lot more words to say about it, but I'm just so impressed by what you do, because not only that, but you're finding all the other leaks of freedom in our country, and you're pointing out one which is in our justice system. So as you've continued this fight for thousands of other people's freedoms, you've also pointed out leaks in where freedom is leaking out of our justice system, because a judge can lift the life sentence off of somebody, or a judge can just not prosecute them, and you're exposing this over and over and over again. And I can't commend you and thank you enough for that. I really am. I can't.
Of course.
So where next? You said there's some other states coming up.
Oh yeah. Yes,
okay. You just can't say them yet. I got you. All right.
Well, no, I can. We're working in California, Tennessee, like I said, Texas, Missouri, Ohio, West Virginia, Illinois. Yeah, we're trucking forward, because here at the end of the day, victims and survivors don't just matter in Wisconsin and Arizona. They matter across the nation. And that's why we have to fight for Kayleigh's Law to be implemented nationwide, because victims and survivors everywhere deserve protection from the person who has harmed them.
because your life matter. What's your site? Because you matter.
Because you still matter.
Because you still matter. That's what it is.
Yep.
So how can people find out more about you? Is there a way that people can support your organization? Because your efforts can't be cheap. I mean, like when I say that, I mean, again, you're raising a family and you're active in this. How can people help you?
Oh, I'm so grateful. I mean, the support and word of mouth is huge for this, because what people don't know, they don't know. But yeah, my husband works a lot of overtime for me to be able to do this. So my website, becauseyoustillmatter.com, is a great place. I'm also big on Instagram, but I'm so grateful for any, word of mouth donations, anything to help me as I continue to pursue this mission to protect victims and survivors, because you still matter.
I love this. Any other final words on things that you might be pointing out, or anything else that we need to see?
I just want to leave with, it takes one person to make a change. I always like to leave people with that hope, and to remind people that our elected officials work for us. Don't forget that.
And you know what? Our elected officials work for us. But what I notice is that you have worked for thousands of people, and not only protect their freedoms, but I think of all the lives that you may have saved, that from all the people that were potential victims that would have been a victim a second and third and fourth time had it not been for your law. And I can't thank you enough.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right, well, Kayleigh, I will talk to you off air and
Absolutely.
in a little bit here. And I want to thank everybody for watching today's show. Please share it with a friend that you think might be interested in not only what Kayleigh has to say, but we've had 6 other guests on today. Share the video, Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. Catch Kayleigh on her site. Thank you all so much for hanging in today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.